Together, we light this small scrap of light, just a flicker of the sun's enormous power and the energy that burns so brightly in these waning days of summer. When still the leaves and the vines, the vegetables and the flowers spill over the tops of all the cages and the walls and the trellises we try to confine them in the warmth and yes, the heat of these waning days of summer, with lightened hearts and with quickened senses, eager to perceive blessing, we gather in gratitude together. James Baldwin once wrote that people cannot unhappily invent their mooring posts. You cannot invent for yourself what it is that makes you you, where it is you come from, who it is that makes your heart sing, he said. You can't decide what it is that is the essence of your very being. Life, he says, gives these things and also takes them away. And the great difficulty, indeed the great joy, is to say yes to life. To say yes to life as it comes, not necessarily as you planned it. That is the work we are gathered to uphold and support here at the end of summer, reflecting in one way or another on what it might mean to say yes to our lives in the days and the months to come. And so as we begin, once again on a Sunday morning that brings us together, welcome to this place. If it is your first or your second or your 400th time at River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation, you are welcome here. We are made more whole by every single thread of a tapestry that we can only weave in community. And though I remember sitting in chairs just like these for the first time and feeling very scared about meeting any new people, I'm going to invite you to do just that. If you are so moved, as you're willing and able, just turn and greet your neighbor. Difficult as it is to greet and then somehow come back together. Now we get to sing. Our opening hymn is a hymn of praise for all that is our life. Every single thing that is our life, the confusion and the blessing and the beauty and the brokenness, and thankfully, grace is here to lead us through. We'll have our lyrics right up here on the back wall. Please rise as you are willing and able to sing together. Prescription for the Disillusioned, a poem by Rebecca Del Rio. Come now to this day. Remove the rigid overcoat of experience, the notion of knowing, the beliefs that cloud your vision. Leave behind the stories you have told of your life. Spit out the sour taste of unmet expectation. Let the stale scent of what-ifs waft back into the swamp of your useless fears. Arrive curious, without the hard-earned armor of your certainty. The plans and the planned results of the life you've imagined. Live the life that chooses you, new every breath, every blink of your astonished eyes. Arrive curious to this moment and to the next, and to all that rises to meet us on the way. We say often that we're not expected to show up on Sunday morning having everything together, but instead to show up as we actually are, with our joys and concerns, our laughter and our tears. And at any point today, during and after the service, where you might feel moved to light a candle for what you carry in the silent sanctuary of your heart, I want to invite you to do so. There are a few things that I want to lift up today for our whole community. Firstly, that I was not supposed to be the only person in the chancel today, but COVID is not over. It's real, folks. Amazingly, 4 members of our staff currently have COVID from a variety of sources. Please take care of yourselves and take care of others. Cliff Harden, our music director, came back from the most amazing vacation ever with COVID. Everybody's doing fine, but do attend to the best of your ability to each other. Also, Reverend Karin, Beth, and Anna, our congregational administrator. So for them and for everybody else in the midst of it all in this season. We also know that this is a time of new beginnings, but also high anxiety, and so we light a candle of simple hope and clarity and calm vibes for every teacher and every kid and every parent in the midst of transition. And a joy that masquerades as a sorrow. I light a candle for Lisa Rubenstein, our board chair here at River Road, who was diagnosed just a couple of weeks ago with breast cancer. Lisa is the most remarkable, optimistic, powerful human being, and she has about the best prognosis that you can get. She came through surgery just this last week and will have a couple of months of treatment, but you talk to her and what you see even now in the midst of that diagnosis and the treatment is leadership and love and care. So I light a candle for her and for River Roaders who are cooking food for her and for all of us who can extend our care to her just by sending some good vibes her way. I also light a candle to grieve the passing of our longtime friend and beloved River Roader, Bob Dollison. Bob died on Sunday, the 27th of August. He and his wife, Christina, wove a chosen family in this place. They were a wonderful and beloved part of our life together. When she passed, he grieved her hard. And so at his passing, it's fitting that in some profound way, we grieve the both of them. For this and for so much more, we make a space in our sanctuary and in our hearts. Our prayer today is a prayer for Labor Day, adapted from the good work of my colleague, the Reverend Jude Geiger. It invites us to ask what it is in this late summer season, this time of lifting up work, what it is we are called to honor, to celebrate, and to commit to. Spirit of life, God of many names, source of love which guides us and goads us and asks something of us as summer slowly or quickly comes to its close. Help us to find a breath before the crush of the year of work and learning, before it all returns anew, the blessing and the anxiety, the hope and the possibility. Teach us to pace ourselves and to remember, whatever it takes, to carve out moments of quiet and stillness. Help us to appreciate one another, returning always to the places that nourish our souls, so that when we reach out to each other, we do so from a place of kindness and care. In the life of our nation, we lift up this Labor Day weekend. We hold all the activists and all the organizers who from time after time have helped to lift our country up to its higher self. May we find new ways to build an economy that treats us all and all of our work with equity, with compassion, and with care. May the Mother of all graciousness teach the nations new ways to respond to the needs of the most vulnerable with diligence and with speed. Even those of us who do not pray, pray ceaselessly for this. May our hearts not be hardened to the plight of those who labor far from our own gaze, and may the labor of each and all, offered up to our own well-being and that of the greater good, may the labor of each and all bring not only survival, but sustainability for not some of us, but all of us in these waning days of summer and far beyond. Amen. Here in our congregation, we do what we do because we choose to do it together, not because anyone coerces us or bosses us or makes us feel guilty. And in this space, we don't give until it hurts, but until and because doing so feels good. We give gifts of time, of talent, and treasure, of scraps of precious conversation that shift our perspective, and moments of community that help us know we are not alone. And so in this time of offering, I invite you to give as you are willing and able in so many ways. There's a box in the back. There are baskets that come around. There's a website. You can click on it. The button is green because that seems appropriate for giving. You can also text to give 73256 and the amount. Any way you give and in any format. We give not just to each other, but to the mission that we create when we come together. Our offering will now be gratefully received.
Bows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds' illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that it feels as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show, and you leave 'em laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way, but now old friends, they're acting strange. They shake their heads, they tell me that I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living life each day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all.
The carved ivory figure, it stands 31 centimeters tall. Formed with a flint knife from a length of mammoth ivory, the figure shows the enigmatic face of a cave lion with no mane, a species that has been extinct in the land in which it was found, now part of Germany, for some 13,000 years. And while such a find, an artistic representation of an ancient beast lost to history, such a find would be astonishing in and of its own right, there is, as they say, more to the story. Because the lower half of this carved ivory lion's body, it is no lion at all, but a man or a woman Gender indeterminate, it is debated. Our lion figurine is in fact bipedal, and its legs are undeniably our own. The carbon dating places this lion man at about 35,000 to 41,000 years of age, making it quite literally the very first imaginary creature known to history. In this world, literally all of the art we have ever found that came at any moment before this particular ivory figure, literally all the art ever found that dates before it is figurative, which means it's a picture of something real, something that exists, that is in the landscape and the environment and the lived experience of the people here. With this carved image is the very first creature from a story. In all of history, this object is the earliest evidence we have of some miracle in our genetic code or some confluence of cultural influences that moves in the human brain to make us storytellers. The first monster, the first creator, the first creature, the first imagined protector, God, hybrid, born not of experience, but from the stories we ourselves can tell. It was found there in that ancient cave, smashed under the weight of soil for 40,000 years. It was found at the very back of the cave. One wonders if it was placed there to protect from whatever it is that lies ever unknown beyond the cave wall, in another world, an unseen domain that itself requires the telling of a tale to even begin to comprehend. You see, this seemingly simple little figurine, it's just the earliest piece of evidence for a fundamental reality about the human condition, a leap from the figurative to the imaginative. From the moment unfolding right here in front of us objectively to the tale we tell to make meaning of that moment. This is how the human brain is organized. We are, as the scholars have said, the storytelling creature. That basic idea is a sermon, I kid you not, I have been preaching for 15 years and probably a dozen times right here in this pulpit. That our thoughts are ordered more by stories than by facts. As a whole, human beings have an ability to hold on to narratives so much better than we can grasp concepts or even, frankly, our own direct experience. And so the stories we tell, they matter. Jewish Midrash teaches that the Word, the Torah, was there with Yahweh from the very beginning of time. The story already written, waiting for us to be created so that we could know and interpret it. The very first words of the Gospel of John tell Christians that in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God. The story, the narrative was there from the start, because without it, we are unmoored utterly from God's creation. Stories give order to an uncertain world. They give shape to chaos. They structure our experience so that we can safely move within it, so much so that we do not always even know when we are telling a story. We can not always tell when we have taken experience and formed it into narrative. As Jonathan Gottschall has written, in the same way that plankton is not aware that it is tumbling through salt water, we humans are not aware that we are constantly moving through story. From novels to films to religious myths to dreams and fantasies to jokes and make-believe, the human mind is addicted to stories. We make them up all the time, and we can easily be taken in by them. Once we latch on to a story, it's hard to give it up. And so he says we need to be wary of the power of story. Which is not to say, I think, that stories are bad. I don't even think that we should be wary of stories themselves. After all, from the first creature out of a story was first formed with a flint knife, we have always encountered the unknown darkness beyond every cave wall. In exactly this way, the darkness is scary, and so we imagine something so powerful that no darkness can defeat it. We create that power in the magic of our telling, and then we sleep more safely in our homes, knowing that our deepest fears live cheek by jowl with our fiercest and most powerful imaginings. No, I don't think we should be wary of stories themselves. What we should be wary of is losing our way inside of them. Sometimes so completely that we follow the line of the narrative, whatever narrative that might be. We follow it instead of deeply, critically being inside the experience of our own lives, our own politics, our own nation, our own world. Story, so interwoven in our being. It is both used and misused in myriad ways in the human condition. Think of all the advertising executives who'd like to buy the world a Coke. The story told in one single frame of ad copy, the narrative that tells you you need a thing, that object, that car, which will definitively make you just as cool as Matthew McConaughey driving his Lincoln Town Car through a cool California night wearing a suit with no wrinkles. That. Think about the clay cylinder seals of ancient Persia, which imprinted on every single royal document an inch-wide ribbon of wax engraved with pure propaganda for the might of the king, and every propaganda tool for every king and every despot ever since. Think on the tales of anachronized history, where a former age seems either gauzy and perfect or broken under the weight of a modern moral judgment. Think about the way that every B-grade scary movie really only has one plot. We use these stories to shape and confine our world and our experience of it. We can get lost in the stories we tell about the past. But more dangerous still, we can get lost in the stories we tell about ourselves, the stories we tell about each other, most especially in the context of our most intimate lives, our families, our friendships. This kid is a troublemaker. That kid is the good one. This parent is a hot mess. That one has it all together. This one is creative. That one is smart. Kids head off to school this year, right now, into a brand new season full of self-defeating or self-aggrandizing narratives, believing they know exactly how this situation is going to play out because they have been convinced, even at the youngest of ages, by people around them of the absolute veracity of some story about themselves that they do not think they can ever change. This person, that person, one story already written, followed by another. We essentialize and we categorize each other based on narratives that have been told too often and too long before us, leaving not enough room for us to become something new. We do this to each other. We do this to our children. We do this to ourselves. And all the while, we curate stories of ourselves online that move further and further from our actual experience, leaving us wondering if everyone else's morning routine is really that peaceful, and the chaos of not knowing what the day will bring is reserved for us alone uniquely. In an era where every single politician, I swear, has to write the same memoir about all that they overcame and how salt of the earth and scrappy their grandparents were, and how really they, a millionaire, are just like you and me, the stories we get lost in are simultaneously too many and too few. And the larger truth, pushing past even the magical and necessary constructions of our narrative-weaving brains, the larger truth is that the lives we live do not follow tidy little narrative arcs. The hero of your story is not always clear if there is a hero at all, and heads up, the hero of your story is probably not you. The characters, such as they are, do not know where they are going. The plot cannot telegraph itself because quite literally there is no plot, but only the effort day, by imperfect and beautiful day, to do the best we can with what we've got. I've been considering lately what it feels like to live inside a story when it's happening. I didn't write this down, but how many of you keep returning to January 6th, when it all went down, when you first turned on the TV, when you first heard the news, what it felt like to know you were living in history, to be inside of it and outside of it at the same time? What does it feel like to live inside of history while it is still the present, before it is mythologized and tidied up for posterity? Some of this thinking has been kicked off for me by some too brief but deeply precious conversations I've had with a few of our members here at River Road who grew up at Los Alamos, or worked at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in World War II, or who were there and who remember, even as the silver screen weaves life and death into a narrative, who remember who were there. The most nuanced of film plots can't really tell the tale of what was terrible and what was beautiful and what was precious, of the days that we are given as real people living real lives at the very crux of history that changes everything. When you are in the middle of a story, wrote the great Imagineer Margaret Atwood, it isn't a story at all, but just a confusion. Like a boat being slowly crushed by icebergs or swept away by rapids. It is only afterwards that it becomes anything like a story at all, when you tell it to yourself and to others. History itself is a narrative force. And yada yada, those who forget it are doomed to repeat it, etc. I know, but still, there are moments as they happen between the stories that make a different kind of meaning in and of themselves, and not every form of remembering or communicating or experiencing life always fit neatly into a story. Most of all, a story that we've received from someone else. A tale of sound and fury that came from someone and somewhere long ago. I have in me, though I don't think I'm ready for it, sometime I have in me another sermon about the big collective meta-narratives we tell as a society, the meta-narrative of our times. Author Seth Goldenberg writes convincingly about the ways in which these meta-narratives hold together societies and nations. And he writes of the signs that one narrative, a legacy narrative, might be on its way to irrelevance, being replaced by a still-forming challenger narrative that has not yet fully come into view. And do you know what he said the signs that a society might be between a narrative are? What happens when, as a society, we are between stories, he said, when old ways of understanding our nation don't work anymore and the new ones still don't have cohesion? Well, the breakdown of political systems, polarization, distrust in institutions, financial uncertainty, you get it. The space between defining narratives is not an easy space. But if we don't live there sometimes, in the space between the stories, on both a personal and collective level, we cannot really create anything new. Nor can we understand or even perceive the world that lies outside of our tried and true tropes. Comprehension of this world and this life depends on the courage not just to edit and reframe the tale we've always told, but to sometimes abandon it entirely and do something altogether new. Happiness, maybe, involves letting go of what you think your life is supposed to look like and finding a way to enjoy what it actually is. And that, the almost infinite possibility of a blank page, the moment before we make meaning of it, that is a holy space. The moment before the story starts is the only time of limitless possibility. Before Call Me Ishmael, there was an empty page. Before any of the other great beginnings, there is a spaciousness. And then, so quickly we fill it up. The first line of any story starts to build a world and a character. From there, every phrase of every line forecloses on all the other worlds the story could create. This is literally how I read a novel. I look at the first line and think about all the worlds that line closes out. I read the second line and think about all the characters that are not present. I watch the first paragraph unfold as worlds fall away and the narrative narrows and the possibilities go down and down until there is only one story that could be told, one world it could be set in, one way of being, one set of motivations, one arc that ends somewhere. I watch the stories fall away. But what if, in our own lives, before we find ourselves totally lost in whatever story we are telling, we stop writing? What if we pause at the first line or even before it and sit with the possibilities still expanding and the reality that right now we not only can be anything but are everything? Heroes and villains and friends and rivals and just plain our own boring selves. Learning or not learning from our mistakes. Changing, but we don't know how. In it together, even when we don't fully understand what it is all pointing toward. Blessing what is, including each other in this polyphony of many voices that we can only create together. The first creature from a story, by our ancient ancestors, napped with a flint knife, emerged from the back of a cave, having been formed from ivory that somehow withstood the ages. But you know, back there, beyond the story, were people sitting together, living lives full of ordinary miracles, sharing each other's sorrows and burdens, sharing each other's memories and imaginations. The story survives, but the depth of the moment remains. And in these days that are given to us, may we meet one another and meet each moment with blessing for the full possibility of all that is right in front of us, and an honoring of all that is good and true and whole before we tell the story we will make up about it. May it be so, and amen. You know, again, everything we do together. And when we show up on Sunday morning, it's because incredibly gracious people, including so many of you, made it happen. This morning particularly, I want to thank Shuai, who's one of the very few people in the world I know who could be told on 24 hours notice, hey, could you play a bunch of Schumann and just step up and do it? Thank you, my friend. Really, that's not an everyday skill set. I want to thank Grace for singing so beautifully a song that I know is at the very center of so many of our hearts, and our tech team, Hugh, who just kept adapting as more persons could not be here for the service, and of course Danny and Ajay, just steady and solid and present for us all. When we gather together in community, we do so because we know we're creating something very precious. And we create that precious thing, not even mostly here on Sunday morning, but in everything we do together. And you can find out about all of the things happening in the life of our congregation. It is the season where everything ramps up. So get ready. It's all happening. Check the e-weekly. If you haven't registered for religious education for children and youth, I want to encourage you to do so. And also, our religious education program is growing. Registrations are going great. We have the curious predicament that the registrations are growing and the religious education volunteer numbers are shrinking. And so we need you. We really do need you to help keep this vibrancy alive. Volunteer once a month, even on a Sunday morning, to help guide our River Road children and youth in their exploration of what it means to be themselves and a UU. You can contact Beth and Laura. You can drop a line to me. We'll get you where you need to go. Also, excitingly, next week is our water communion service. It's an annual tradition here at River Road and in Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world, where we invite you to bring just a bit of water from your travels, from your tap. It does not matter. We will pour it all together as a symbol of the ways in which we commingle our lives in community. We'll also have orientation for all of our religious education classes, so it's coming back time next week. You also can learn more about the proposed changes to Article 2, which is part of the bylaws of our Unitarian Universalist Association that helps to identify what is at the theological heart of Unitarian Universalism. There's a Zoom workshop coming up. There's a series of conversations facilitated by one of our religious educators, Beth Irakora, and there are ongoing, really faithful and difficult sometimes conversations on the board level. So do be engaged as we continue that work together. Sunday, September 17th, we have a film screening for Birthing Justice by our Reproductive Justice Task Force. We hope you'll check that out. And on September 30th, we are hosting Unstoppable Stories, the DC area's very own banned books festival. On that afternoon, Jamie Raskin will be joining us here in the sanctuary to talk about legislation, right? We love Jamie. Well, not all of you. We don't want to be political, but whatever. Jamie Raskin will be here. It'll be good. We're going to have a drag queen story hour. We're going to have a bouncy house. We're going to do it all. You should come. It's going to be really fun. And stop by the bazaar table after the service so you can find out how to help with River Road's largest fundraiser. The bazaar is coming back, y'all. First weekend in November. And for those of you who do not know, the bazaar is like the world's greatest yard sale. Also, we need a lot of volunteers, but literally every article of clothing I own is from the bazaar, so you should both volunteer and shop. That, blessedly, is all of the announcements. And so, as we prepare to take this light that we have kindled, not just in this place, but in our hearts, as we prepare to take this light out into the waiting world, may the truth that makes us free, the love that casts out fear, and the hope that never dies guide us and those we love and those we do not love forward together till the day spring breaks and all the shadows flee away. Amen.